Are you struggling to make sense of T.S. Eliot's The Waste Land for your NET exam? Don't worry, you're not alone. This poem is quite infamous for its fragmented nature, its complexities, and an unending list of classical references and literary allusions. But in today's video, we are going to simplify this poem, uncover its hidden layers, and analyze some of the most important themes. With NET exam just round the corner, this video is designed to make you feel prepared to ace UGC NET English exam. So stay tuned till the end of this video and don't forget to hit the subscribe button. T.S. Eliot is one of the most renowned literary critics and poets of the modern age who was deeply affected by the ravages of First World War because he believed that the First World War did not just shake the ideals of humanity. In fact, it also led to a degeneration of moral values at the same time the culture and tradition of Europe. Dissatisfied with the deterioration of literature during that point of time, he has often talked about restoring that culture and tradition with a lot of intellectual depth and an innovative style in essays like Tradition and Its Individual Talent and dramatic monologues like The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock. But his fame is largely secured on his masterpiece The Waste Land, which was published in 1922. It is undoubtedly one of the most significant contributions to English literature in the 20th century, effectively capturing the themes and tone of modernist literature, owing to its non-linearity, fragmented structure, and an abundance of classical references. But why is Eliot's The Waste Land considered to be such an important work that it is repeatedly asked in UGC NET English exam? So for that, we first need to understand the time in which Eliot was writing this poem. The time in which he wrote The Waste Land is basically considered as the aftermath of World War I. And we already know that T.S. Eliot was so shocked, was so dissatisfied by the ravages of World War I that he believed that this First World War did not just shake the ideals of humanity, but it also stripped away the cultural inheritances of the Western civilization. And that is why he begins The Waste Land by talking about a desert. And this desert symbolizes a metaphorical barrenness where there is no creativity, where there is no cultural privilege or heritage or anything like that, effectively capturing the themes of despair and disillusionment. One of the most interesting facts about The Waste Land is its title. Actually, he was never meant to title this particular poem as The Waste Land. He actually wanted to title it as He Do the Police in Different Voices. A very unusual title, but he was inspired from Charles Dickens's novel Our Mutual Friend, wherein there was this one character called as Betty Higden, and she was praising her adopted son Sloppy for reading the newspaper in different voices. Thankfully, T.S. Eliot dropped this idea, and when he was reading Jessie L. Weston's From Ritual to Romance, he was inspired by the myth, the Fisher King myth that Jessie Weston was talking about in this particular work, wherein his land was basically laid to waste. And that's when he decided that he is going to title this particular poem as The Waste Land. The poem begins with a Latin epigraph that is borrowed from Satyricon, which is a novel written by Petronius. And this novel is largely talking about a beautiful woman who is blessed with prophetic powers, but there's this only one catch. That is, she is not able to stay eternally young and beautiful. And that is why she is longing for death. So you see, T.S. Eliot began The Waste Land with a classical allusion, and this sort of continues throughout the poem as well. He did a similar thing in The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock, and he has also included a lot of other classical allusions and literary references in The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock as well. Coming back to The Waste Land, this entire poem is so long that Eliot has divided it into 5 sections. These sections are The Burial of the Dead, A Game of Chess, The Fire Sermon, Death by Water, and What the Thunder Said. The Burial of the Dead begins with one of the most famous lines in English literature, which is, "April is the cruelest month." Now guys, Tell me which is the other literary work of great importance which begins with a reference to April? Should I give you a hint? It starts with "When that April with his shower suit." I think this much is enough for you to guess the name of the literary work. And if you have rightly guessed, please mention in the comment section below. Coming back to the Burial of the Dead, as I've mentioned, it begins with this particular line, which is "April is the cruelest month," and talks about a particular desert, which is completely barren, it is completely sterile, symbolizing the spiritual as well as the cultural barrenness in Europe during the First World War. Apart from that, it is also talking about this one character called as Madame Sosotris, who is reading her tarot cards, and while reading her tarot cards, she is foretelling what is going to happen in the rest of the poem. Now, apart from this, he has also included various other allusions like the story of Ezekiel and the story of Tristan and Isolde. In the second section, which is titled as "A Game of Chess," Eliot talks about seduction and moral degeneration. Now, the title "A Game of Chess" is actually referring to a Jacobean play titled as "Women Beware Women," talking about this one character called as Bianca, who was being seduced while her mother-in-law was playing a game of chess. In this section, Eliot interweaves the discussions of the working class women who talk about infidelity and other related matters in a very normal manner because they find themselves stuck in artificial relationships. But the best part about this section is how Eliot juxtaposes the modern setting wherein there is this barman in an East End pub who calls out for the last orders by saying, "Hurry up please, it's time," and how he juxtaposes this setting with the Shakespearean setting, wherein these are the very last words spoken by Ophelia in Hamlet before her suicide. The third section was what he called as the fire sermon. Similar to the previous section, in this section as well, Eliot has juxtaposed two different ideas. One talking about the setting of the past, and another talking about the setting of the modern age or the present setting. So in this particular section, he has tried to juxtapose River Thames and how it is represented in Edmund Spenser's Bartholomew, and River Thames, how it is represented in the modern setting, how it has become so decayed and so degenerated. However, unlike the previous section, this section ends on a positive note with St. Augustine's Confessions and Buddha's teachings on how to live a life of asceticism despite being in the middle of chaos. From this point of time, we see a shift in the tone of the poem. Earlier, it was pretty pessimistic and nihilistic, but now we start to see how Eliot, especially the speakers of Eliot, they try to be more accepting and more spiritual in the modern setting. And this idea is effectively captured in the fourth section, which is called as Death by Water. This is the shortest and the briefest section of The Waste Land, which is talking about the drowning of the Phoenician sailor Phlebas. Through the representation of this particular story, Eliot wants to come back, wants to emphasize a singular idea, and that is death is inevitable. The fifth and the final section is titled as What the Thunder Said. In this section, we return back to the sterile desert, we return back to the barren desert with which we began the first part. Now, in this particular section, the speaker is found complaining about why the rain has not arrived even when the thunder has promised. But when the rain finally arrives, the speaker alludes to the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, referring to the possibility of new life. Here the rain is represented as regenerated hope, bringing in some new customs, some new traditions. In fact, T.S. Eliot also mentions one of the most important lines in this particular Upanishad, which is Shantihi, Shantihi, Shantihi. Apart from that, one of the most important lines in this particular section is These fragments I have showed against my ruins. From Dante's Divine Comedy, Shakespeare's The Tempest and Antony and Cleopatra to Hinduism and Buddhism, the wasteland is filled with classical references and literary allusions. It begins by talking about the fragmentary nature of the modern age in the backdrop of First World War, represented through a barren desert, after which it talks about the duality of water and fire, emphasizing the duality of life that nobody is able to understand because there is a lot of spiritual barrenness and an utter loss of faith and values in society. But then towards the end, the poem ends on a redemptory note, providing a glimpse of hope and culture symbolized through rain. Although Eliot's The Waste Land received mixed reviews upon publication, it left a profound impact on the writers and his contemporaries, be it William Faulkner's The Sound and Fury, F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby, or for that matter, Evelyn Waugh's A Handful of Dust. If you want to understand these works in detail, understand other contributions of T.S. Eliot in English literature in more detail, and master modern age for your UGC NET English exam preparation, then don't worry, I've got you covered. In my live classes for UGC NET English exam preparation, I am covering every important period, author, dramatist, poet and their works related to the history of British English literature and Indian English literature in a very simplified and comprehensive manner. Not only that, but I'm also breaking down complex concepts and topics related to literary theories, which will provide you the confidence to ace UGC NET English exam. The best part about these sessions, that these are live one-on-one sessions, which means that I can provide you personalized guidance and share feedback tailored to your needs and requirements, trying to fill the possible gaps in your UGC NET English exam preparation. If you want to know more about the courses I offer, the sessions I take, and the notes I provide, feel free to check out my TopMate page. It's topmate.io/Riya Gandhi. I've shared the link in the description box below, so don't forget to check it out. That's it for today's video, folks. If you found this video on T.S. Eliot's The Waste Land informative and helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more such UGC NET English insights. Stay tuned for more such videos breaking down complex concepts into bite-sized exam-friendly lessons.